Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm Carl,
I'm Sam.
and we are here to talk about the Week 4 recap for the NFL. There is some big news coming out of the NFL this week that I think we should talk about. Today is October 7th. That's when we're recording this, and we discussed some big news on three different things. First, we're going to talk about Dwayne Haskins got benched. I called it at the beginning of this season that he would not make it through the entire season. I am not a fan of the Ohio State quarterbacks and their record in the NFL. They've never been good, and this one falls in suit. I think it's a big problem that I don't think Washington's going to recover with, their backup and then maybe starting Alex Smith. What do you think about Dwayne Haskins being benched, Sam?
Yeah, so obviously I kind of had thought that there was some potential there. I figured because of last year, just the hellacious landscape of what that team was, he showed a little bit of potential. That seems to have all been gone. So he's out the door. He's not going to start again. I doubt we'll really see him starting for an NFL franchise. Maybe he'll go become a backup or a third stringer for a team.
I think he'll become a Geno Smith,
I definitely don't think Alex Smith is going to start this season. I think he's done. I
hope he does. I hope he starts at least once. Just get him to one.
If he gets one snap, put him on as comeback player of the year.
Hell yeah, baby.
I mean, you'd love to see him go there, but it's bad. Kyle Allen will probably be the starter. Ron Rivera already knows him. I mean, they're not.
Coached him in Carolina.
I get that the division they're in is a joke at this point.
That it is.
1-2-1 leading. Go Birds, I guess. My soul is dead. My soul is just dead. But this team's not gonna win this division.
No.
They're probably looking to get a good offensive piece. They're probably looking for that Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. Bring him up to DC, but we'll see what happens. And then we have some COVID. We have COVID news. So it's Titans. Let's start with the Titans because they had two more positive players. They might not be playing this week. I just saw a report. Tannehill and several players held a private workout. It sounds like players that were COVID negative. I'd assume healthy people held a private workout today just to kind of stay in shape, it looks like. Tannehill, leading this team. So there's a chance that they're not there. I know I saw a report from the NFL that fines are going to increase for stuff and that teams might be taking automatic L's. So there's a chance that the NFL just says that Titans take an L this week against Buffalo, which I fucking love.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to put an asterisk on the season if they start doing that. There's already an asterisk on the season, I think, because of the shortened off season and players getting hurt on some really good players getting hurt on really good teams. But
the players have wanted this though for years. They're like, we don't want to preseason. Like, this is the pro of the preseason is if you get limited snaps in an actual setting that you'll be healthier, and they want no padded practices. They've shown padded practice. When the moment you do the non-pad to pad is when injuries take place because your body's not used to the weight. So this brings up a lot of questions about the players might be full of shit and have no idea that what they want is actually dangerous for them.
Yeah. I think the biggest COVID news to come out this week, though, is that Stephon Gilmore has tested positive.
Yeah, so COVID. The Patriots... Yeah, so I saw there are no positives for the Chiefs. They tested the Chiefs. They all came up negative. Yep. I know there was a picture of Stephon Gilmore, right in Mahomes' face talking to him, towards the end of the game or after the game. And so people were kind of jumping around making memes about that, trying to bring him down. So, we'll just keep an eye on that. The Patriots, we'll get to the Patriots later, but, Bill Belichick, if they have negatives and they have to take Gilmore out of game, Belichick will still play. He'll field whatever roster he can.
Yep, He's an absolute competitor.
Yeah.
Let's get right into this week, huh? Let's start with this Thursday night game. Denver visiting the Jets.
The torturous Thursday night game. This is what it looks like when two bad teams play. You get high scores. Look, I watched about 3/4 of this game, and I gotta be real, I turned it off. I was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. It hurt my soul. So I went back and I recapped the part that I missed.
You were right.
What do you want me to say about Denver? Everyone got fucking hurt. Like, I don't think this is the Denver team that we expected to see. Like, Denver got hurt. I don't think it's an interesting brain game to see if they get Trevor Lawrence. I know that the Jets haven't won yet, but, I give it to them that they'll probably win like 2 games to finish out the season just to rip that chance away.
Yeah, and we also can't forget about Trey Lance, coming out of North Dakota State. He's a big name as well.
Yeah, he just declared, didn't he?
Yeah,
Justin Fields is also going to declare. I know Ohio State quarterbacks haven't done well. Justin Fields has looked different than a lot of those guys. I'm definitely more. That's not true. Joe Burrow was a Ohio State quarterback at one point.
He didn't get drafted from.
No, he got drafted from somewhere that never produced things backs at LSU.
Wide receivers.
They have had what? Now they do.
OBJ, Jarvis
that was
Landry.
Such an anomaly for that
Justin
team.
Jefferson is balling out.
I know now they are, but I just remember the golden days of LSU, which is we have this running back and this defense, and we're gonna run the ball like a lot. It's like Georgia.
Yeah.
No, but so the Broncos are hurt. Jerry Jeudy looked decent as a rookie receiver. He's kind of coming up. I know they've been testing out different people. The Jets are the Jets.
Yeah.
The only positive of this team is their rookie offensive lineman, who has been an absolute animal on the field. Like he looks good, but I'm always worried in these below expectation seasons. Am I seeing somebody who is trying really hard, or am I seeing somebody who's good? Because he could be bad, but because we have no expectation of this team and he's trying, he looks good. Like, we've seen these kinds of things happen before where you're like, oh, this player looks really good. And then the team gets good and you're like, nope, they're actually bad. It's the fact that team was so bad that. Yeah. That's it. Like, the Jets are bad. Like, Jets are number 1 pick, probably.
So I'm going to stick with giving them the positives and the negatives for each team. And the only positive that I found for Denver was Melvin Gordon had his best game of the season. That's really the only positive that I saw out of that Denver offense. He had 23 rushes for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's the one who won them this game. Besides that, absolutely pitiful. Driscoll can't throw. It's just kind of.
They started what's his face?
They tried Ripien. Yeah,
Ripien.
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah, Ripien can't throw. Sorry, I was mistaken.
Part of the game too, didn't they?
Yeah, he was. Oh, they put in Driscoll for running plays, where the quarterback sneaks. But
another team also switched their it was the Patriots switched their quarterback out.
Yeah, but Ripien or Ripon, however you would say his name,
Ripester.
He was doing well in the first half. He was ripping apart that Jet secondary, which is no big, but then he threw 2 interceptions back to back. And
did Darnold throw a pick six in this?
No, Darnold didn't throw a pick 6. Ripien did. Yeah, actually, this is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's first game without an interception. So
that's congrats. I guess.
It's getting better. Okay. The negative for Denver that I really saw was the secondary, just Swiss cheese. Sam Darnold was able to carve him up in the second half and get a majority of his stat line in the second half against them. For New York, the only positive I saw was Jamison Crowder being back. An offensive weapon of one offensive weapon for this Jets team is a plus. He had 7 receptions for 104 yards. He's the only thing that gave them spark. And it was just kind of a sad offensive game besides him. The negative was there's no running game to speak of because there is no O-line. That O-line
Frank Gore's not going to get it done.
No. Frank Gore's not. He'll get you your 5-6 yards.
Not even that at this point. Just
I
let
think
it
he'll
die.
get it.
Stop signing him.
He's still good, but
What?
there's no O line for New York. Darnold was sacked 6 times against a beaten and bruised Denver defense that should not have gotten him 6 times. They have not shown to be that good, and they got to him. So this game was a bad game with a high score, just like you said at the beginning, but I don't think we should give it any mind. Both teams are really struggling, and both teams are going to continue struggling.
Yeah, speaking of struggling teams, Lions Saints. No
yeah, let's move
team.
to the Lions game.
No team, and I mean this with Atlanta, no team has blown more double-digit leads this year than Detroit.
Yep.
They have now 3 weeks in a row gotten off to these hot starts, and then they just stop.
I think it's first time in NFL history. They 3 weeks in a row they've given up 14 points or double-digit lead.
No, what is happening with this team? Look, I think with this team, it's gonna be like a couple of these teams here. The in and out week to week is the same. The offense looks all right. The offense looks good, actually. I'll tell you, all right's gone. This running back group is getting it done. The receivers work. Like, the O-line's not got, like, this is a usable offense. This is an offense that, like, if you have a capable defense, you could make that 7th wild card spot. Like, if we're being real. But then we get to the defense, and it is just getting manhandled. And this team doesn't seem to want to play. Like, this coaching staff just has lost this team entirely.
I would say them and the Jets have the same feeling, except for on the offensive side of the ball. It still seems like Detroit has a spark on the offensive side of the ball, but for defense,
I think it reminds me of what I saw with Houston and Bill O'Brien. Was this Patriots coordinator who comes in and tries to be Iron Hand Bill. Bill Belichick has huge problems with players. Players leave and shit talk that team hard. The difference was Bill Belichick is a genius at football. Matt Patricia and Bill O'Brien are not.
Yes.
And so this team's quit on them. But we look at the Saints. It's starting to click more. This team is looking better.
Finally.
Drew Brees is looking better. They get Michael Thomas back. They get him back. Latavius Murray was a great goal line back. It pissed me off. I have Kamara in fantasy, and I need 5 touchdown games every week from him.
He had 2.
No, he had 1.
Kamara had 2.
I believe he had 1. Latavius Murray had 2. Traquan Smith had 2.
Was it Latavius had 2? I could have sworn it.
2. Because that cheap bastard. If you hear me, Sean Payton, stop it.
Latavius actually had a goal line stand that went to Kamara's way, so Kamara would not have gotten the touchdown if it weren't if he didn't get the ball the next play after Latavius did not. Yeah.
So, I mean, the Saints carved them the fuck up for 3.5 quarters. So the Saints are looking better. See, New Orleans was one of the teams that I was not worried about to this slow start.
Yeah. I'll start with New Orleans. Their running game was on point for the first time all season, I think, that they actually got their running backs running and not like pass catching out of the backfield and getting a whole bunch of yards after catch. They had 147 yards rushing between them. That's impressive. And 3 touchdowns. They only had 55 yards between Kamara and Latavius Murray receiving. That's a low for the season, and they didn't need it. They really didn't need it.
Yeah, I don't think Kamara's top 5 receiving yards anymore, which is a big bummer for me.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I believe McLaurin replaced him now at 5th.
Yeah. Well, Calvin Ridley is off that list too.
No, he's still up there. He had a big
he had 3 100 yards games before this game.
We don't need to talk
0 yards this game.
We don't have to talk about my fantasy team.
We'll talk about that later. The negative for New Orleans was they made mistakes early that allowed Detroit to take advantage of it and just roll down the field. The Breeze interception, really truly wasn't his fault. It just they've been a slow start team for sure this season, and it continued in this game. And Detroit took full advantage of that. They had in their first drive had a very long pass to Amendola, I believe. That defense was so soft in the secondary, but I think they were blitzing, and Matt Stafford picked it up. All out, great play by Amendola, one of his only good plays this season. But Going on to Detroit, the only positive I saw was the offense kept moving. Except for that time of like 3 quarters, or two and a quarter quarters, where they allowed New Orleans to go 5 straight touchdowns. Detroit had 14 points, had that long gap where they didn't score, and then they scored 15 points in the second half. Not a bad number if they weren't so
Yeah,
bad
the
on defense.
defense is you got to stop.
Allowing
One.
5 straight under unanswered touchdowns.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders was getting it, and it's just
So that's my negative for Detroit is the defense was god awful this game.
Yeah.
And Drew Brees finally was throwing over 20 yards, which was a plus. And he made Detroit pay for it.
Yeah. How do you feel about dirty shots? Because this game I can think of two, Tampa Bay and Chargers. I had this game going on my TV while I had the Cowboys game ripping my soul out on my laptop. I want to highlight, I didn't like the way Tampa played on defense. Their offense got things moving. Tom Brady looked good. I'll admit a little bit that I may have been a little much on this one. But 2 plays, Herbert and Eckler, that this defense made dirty hits. With Eckler, Eckler I can understand, actually. I will say I didn't think he needed to hit him because he was clearly going to go down. But I get it. You fought back up. You're going to get hit. But Herbert, I'm watching Herbert run to the sidelines. I see a defender chasing him. He's about to push him out of bounds. I see another defender in full sprint on the seam of the out of bounds, sprint and slam into Herbert, and they got called for that. I didn't like that play. I didn't like that call, and that was when Tampa Bay was down. So I didn't like I think
they weren't playing the smartest football on defense.
They were playing it's the Sue factor. Yeah. I don't know if it's actually Ndamukong Suh, but like we've seen this before on teams with Ndamukong Suh where people get chippy. But I didn't like it. I didn't like it one fucking bit. They were trying to hurt the other players, and no one can convince me otherwise.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I did not like that, and I hope that gets taken care of. All around, Tampa played a good game. The offense was moving the ball, so there's a lot of positive here. They beat a team which I think is better off, but I'd highlight for the Chargers, the defense definitely is let up now 2 games in the back half, but Justin Herbert looked fucking killer.
Yes, he did.
He is looking, honestly, if I'm being real, just as good as Joe Burrow is this season.
I agree. Totally agree.
I was watching him make throws, and the guy's name would come up, and I was just like, who in Sam fuck is this guy? This isn't Keenan Allen. Just random names. He was just dropping them in. Like, he looked fantastic. And I loved it. And
the one interception that he had, though,
it'll happen with rookies. That's something.
Yeah, that's my exact thought.
Interceptions was Phillip Rivers.
He almost threw one on Sunday.
Yeah, he also can't score.
Was dropped by Khalil Mack. Yeah.
Honestly, my big takeaway from this game was the chippiness towards the end of the first half from Tampa's defense. I really didn't like it. I thought it undermined a game that Brady and this offense played really well.
Yeah.
So this back half of this defense continues to be a problem. But the Chargers are doing Chargers things where they just kind of let up in games. I just keep watching games and being like, what would be really helpful is Derwin James.
Yeah. I mean, that would always help having him at the strong safety position.
No, so I'm really liking what I see from Herbert, and I was worried about him coming in. I liked him in college.
Last game was a little rough, but this game was good. Yeah, he only I will start there. My positive for the Chargers was Herbert, obviously. 20 for 25, only 5 incompletions all game for 290 yards with an average passing length of 11.6 yards. 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. He did take 2 sacks, but his offensive line isn't very good, so that's understandable. His interception at the end of the game, he was trying to lead them to a victory, and he forced a ball that wasn't supposed to be there, and that's
a rookie mistake.
That's a rookie mistake. That's a mental mistake.
And I can see him
that can change.
Remembering those.
Yes,
I see it.
So he's my positive for the game. I have two negatives for the Chargers this game. First and foremost, Austin Eckler. I that team is Austin Eckler. So
yeah, he is most likely out for 6 to 10 weeks or the season.
So officially from the Chargers, he's expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring and knee injury. So he pulled his hamstring and hyperextended his knee. So that's a big negative. But the absolutely worst part of the game for the Chargers was Justin Herbert was their leading rusher with 14 yards. Rushing.
Yeah, Joshua Kelly looked terrible this game.
No actual running back besides Austin Eckler. He got two carries for 12 yards, I think, during this game. No running back besides him got over 10 yards rushing.
Yeah, that's bad.
What is that? They weren't playing down. They were ahead. I don't understand that whatsoever. So that is my absolutely worst part of this game for the Chargers.
Yeah, I will say the one thing I would say to all of that is that this is a Tampa defense built to stop runs, but it's still inexcusable to get
50 yards. Not even 50 yards combined between, I think 5 total runners, including Herbert. Not even 50 yards.
Yeah, it's bad. You gotta get that fixed. They're gonna probably be running Justin Jackson, Joshua Kelly. So, who do they move to next week? They go on to play the Saints Monday Night Football. So,
Saints don't have the best
it could be worse, but it could be a lot better too. This is one of those games that the Saints could win to rally up say, look, we got 2 in a row now. So
I'm going to move on to Tampa Bay in this game. The positive that I saw, again, was the offense kept moving. It's just the same as last week. They just kept chugging along. However, it wasn't as big on Tom Brady's shoulders this week. I would say Ronald Jones had the best day out of all the Buccaneers. He had 20 rushes for 111 yards, 6 receptions for 17. He didn't get a touchdown, but that's understandable, I guess. Just kept the clock running against this Chargers defense that kept letting them stay on the field. And then Herbert had to play hero ball at the end and didn't really work out. The negative for Tampa Bay was Tom Brady loves throwing pick sixes. I don't understand. What is this? He just loves throwing it to the other team and giving them a point, or giving them 6 points. And then also the secondary was complete ass against a rookie. A rookie quarterback torched them all game long, and it was just kind of sad to watch. I don't look forward to this year for Tampa Bay. I think my assessment was a little too high, but I think yours at the beginning of the season was still a little bit too low at 6-10. So I think they'll end up being an 8-8 team, 9-7 team, and if they're competitive with the Saints this year, then maybe they can win the division. But I think a wild card spot is in their future. Let's move on. Let's stay in the NFC South. I want to talk about the Arizona at Carolina game.
You're fucking with my flow.
I'm sorry. This game was
so Carolina
really
2 weeks
fun
in
to
a row,
watch.
Baby.
Yeah,
I found out Carolina has one of the top, I believe it's top 5 pass defenses in the NFL currently.
That is surprising.
How do you lose your best player and get better? That's what I want to know. How do you lose Christian McCaffrey and get better?
Let's ask Mike Davis.
I think they were forcing the ball a little too much to McCaffrey, if we're being real. Looking back on those first 2 weeks, they were probably just trying to make things work. No
offseason, no offensive prep, and this one guy, it was the entire offense for the team last year. I think they were just kind of plug and playing around McCaffrey until they got the offense going and in a rhythm.
I'm gonna toot my own fucking horn. After Teddy Bridgewater destroyed his knee in the most aggressive way possible, everyone left him for dead. I did not.
They left him on the. They left him on the side of the road. Absolutely.
Believed in him. I thought the Minnesota Vikings were incredibly stupid for just letting him go. I think that the Saints were dumb for letting him leave. And I think that Chicago is mentally incapable for not trying to sign him. That was my big thing, was that I said Chicago will sign Teddy Bridgewater for this offseason. Your roommate, who was my former roommate.
I'll agree with you, except for the Saints. He was leaving the Saints. He had too good of a season with the Saints not to. You're
gonna sign Taysom Hill to an extension, but you can't put together a little money to keep Teddy Bridgewater on for a 1-year deal as a backup. And now
Teddy Bridgewater wanted to leave. Teddy Bridgewater made it clear to the GM that he wanted to leave.
I heard opposite reports that he wanted to stay. He was willing to stay. Look, here's the deal. Carolina, everyone kind of said this is a patchwork team. I said, you know what? This team's better than people think they're going to be. And they've done just that. I don't want to say butt-fucked Arizona, but they did a good job of holding them through and making it their game. So they're killing it out here. They're now on a 2-win streak. They go next week to Atlanta. Probably going to beat Atlanta. I like this team. And if they keep... This might be the team that makes... Everybody says, what happened there?
I think they're a prime spot for the 7th. I think they're a prime spot for the 7th
I definitely have a feeling that this is going to be one of those teams that wins a lot in the middle of the season and then loses at the end of the season a bunch. There's always a couple, but I like them. I like my cons for this team were kind of that the defense is a little wonky at times, but I really like this team. I really like the direction it's trending, and I really like them to be a division winner here in like a season or two.
Possibly this season if the Saints take a tank.
I don't think it'll be this season just because Drew Brees, he usually starts off slow these past couple of years, but they're going to put all in to try and get a Super Bowl right now, I think, before the hellacious landscape of that cap space comes back to haunt them.
Yeah.
But I mean, Arizona looked... Kyler Murray now 2 weeks in a row has looked
questionable.
I think that's like he's obviously shown potential, but 2 weeks in a row, DeAndre Hopkins has not been the main factor of that offense, and 2 weeks in a row they've struggled. So clearly they need to do what the Lions had to do, which was kind of get Stafford off of Calvin Johnson a little bit and let him develop at certain skill points before moving back.
Yeah, I think I'll start with Arizona. I think the positive and the negative this week was Murray. I think Murray in the second half was trying to come back and make it a more reasonable game. He got a garbage time touchdown in the fourth quarter to make it seem like it was closer than it was, but it wasn't. It was 31-14. For a long time, and then they got a touchdown in the fourth quarter. But Murray had his worst game passing this season. I think it's in his career in the NFL at least. He was 24 for 31 and only 133 yards. 3 touchdowns though, so 3 of those passes were touchdowns.
Look, I'm not saying Kyler Murray is a bad quarterback. I'm just saying he's not. He's had 2 bad games now. It's that learning curve.
He had 6 rushes for 78 yards, and one of them was a 45-yarder to get him down in the red zone where they got another touchdown. But I don't know. The way Murray was playing was he was not sending it out to his weapons like they should have been. Like DeAndre Hopkins had I think a one-handed catch on the sidelines. But
he was nursing an injury in his ankle or knee.
Yeah. So his weapons aren't all there right now. And Kyler, I think, made the best that he could. But that running game also did not get going.
You still have Kenyon Drake, who's supposed to be a dual threat. You still have Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk there, who you had last year. Like, I think that he's just kind of relied too much on DeAndre Hopkins this season and has avoided certain developmental tracks that we see this with a lot of second-year quarterbacks that the league now has tape on you.
Yeah.
And the play calling was questionable at best to me at times. This is when air raid goes bad, it goes bad.
Yeah, I think that it doesn't help that they were playing from behind the entire game, and there was just this sense of over urgency from the Arizona Cardinals. I know that they were down, but it also seemed like they were fine if they took it a little bit slower at the beginning of the third, but they didn't.
This team can't go slow. It is pedal
And
to the metal.
Arizona's defense, who has looked solid throughout the first 3 weeks, looked terrible. At least their secondary did. Way too lax on these Carolina receivers. Carolina and Bridgewater had a field day in this secondary. That leads me to Carolina. Carolina's positive was Bridgewater looked good, good. He was 26 for 37, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception that was a questionable throw, but I don't think completely his fault. Um, he also had 6 rushes for 32 yards and a rushing touchdown for Bridgewater. So all around great game for him. Another person that's a plus for them was Mike Davis, an absolute rock star for them this week, and he had 16 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown, but also got 5 receptions for 27 yards. So he was a big part of this offense. People were wondering what they were going to do with the running back situation. They're pretty good at running back right
So
now.
just to
And
be
when
clear,
Christian McCaffrey
Chicago
comes back,
let him go and Seattle let him go. Do you think those teams regret it a little?
absolutely. Maybe not Seattle as much, but Chicago for sure.
I
And
mean,
I'll get to that. I'll get to that in the Chicago game. Why I think
yeah,
it
I
was a
still don't think
huge
they should have
problem.
ever let go Jordan Howard. I think that him and Tariq Cohen fit the bill for what this offense wanted to do.
Yeah. The negative for Carolina was that the defense could not contain Murray when he was outside of the pocket. When he was outside of the pocket, he was at his best completion percentage and everything like that. But he was under pressure almost the entire game when he was in the pocket. He only got sacked once, which was surprising, but that was because it was a forced fumble, so it was a strip sack. But he threw the ball forward, but it wasn't forward momentum from his arm; it was from the defender. So it was just kind of an odd thing that happened
Oh,
there.
we'll
But
talk about odd plays when we get to that Chiefs game, bud.
oh yeah, I have that mark. That was such a bullshit call.
That just makes me
But
think of it, like the moment, we'll get to it.
yeah, what game do you got next?
I'm gonna go back to the order in which NFL has listed. So Jacksonville Bengals. Here's the positive. It's gonna be the same all season for Jacksonville. Minshew's good. I understand everything wrong. Minshew's good. DJ Chark him. Boom. That's your start of your offense. The rest of this team kind of sucks. James Robinson looked interesting. He's actually looked promising this season. You got it moving against the Bengals, but this team very clearly has giant gaps and giant holes that it needs to fill. But you're not replacing Gardner Minshew. At this point, I don't care if you get number one overpicked. You're trading that pick for a haul. You're not replacing Minshew. He's looked great this season. Bengals, Joe Burrow, baby. Earlier we're talking about rookies. I kind of forgot about quarterbacks for a minute because I was so excited about CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah,
This
bro.
guy is probably your rookie of the season. At week 4, it's early week 4. We talk about MVPs and stuff, but Joe Burrow's looked good. Joe Mixon got off this week.
Let's not forget about Herbert too, though.
Herbert's looked good, but Joe Burrow's looked a little better. It might just be that they had a game, like he has a game ahead of him. But the Bengals looked good. This is the team that I kind of figured it'd be a little bit more. It'd be a little high scoring. The defense isn't really going to do much. It's still, though, they got to get an offensive line for Burrow.
Yeah.
But this, Burrow, again, the Bengals and Jaguars are teams that I think all year are going to be the same positives. It's that your young quarterback is looking good. You have potential at offense. You got to get some defense and some other pieces around there to help. I do want to sing the sad siren song because we're going to say goodbye today to an NFL player. He's not actually out yet, but it's done. It's over, and that's AJ Green. It's done.
Thank you.
In the arms of an angel, Sarah McLaughlin plays. I love this man. But I was so aware the last 2 seasons. I'm like, injuries have just taken another one from us. Like T.Y. Hilton, it's done. It's over.
I
In the
will
arms of
agree
an
with that with
angel.
one play. There was one play, I believe it was in the second quarter,
He's worth one
and
play a game. That AJ Green is
and
worth one play a
no,
game.
it wasn't even a catch. Joe Burrow placed the ball probably, I would say, like a foot and a half away from his hands, and he didn't go for it. So he was running and then put his hands like this, and then if he or put his hands out a little bit, but if he extended, he would have caught the ball. And
Receivers
it
don't
just looked like he
extend
was
anymore.
lazy.
I'm gonna
It
make
just
like
seemed
a
like he was
documentary
lazy.
about it. NFL receivers don't extend anymore. I don't know why. I don't know
That's a
if there's
lie.
like an injury that I just meant. They don't. You never see them do it.
That's
I
a
remember
fallacy.
growing up, you'd always see them flat out just plateau into like a plank to catch these balls, and now like they're like
I
soft.
think they're just as
Receivers
athletic.
got soft.
Well, they got
They're
soft
more
because they were getting
athletic.
absolutely
They're
lit
more
up in the
athletic.
middle.
No, I guarantee you right now, you take the top receivers from right now and you put them in 20 years ago, dude, they're going to tear people. Well, maybe not because the defenses were allowed to basically just like manhandle players at the 5-yard line. But still, like, Julio Jones is going to annihilate defenses. Like, I'm not saying they're less athletic. I'm just saying that they're a little softer. They're not going for those layouts. But what did you think about this game?
I'm going to start with Cincinnati. I'm going to touch on the point that you just said. Burrow is looking better each week that we see him. He had that rough game against, I think it was Cleveland, where he threw 60 times. And week 2, it was a rough one for him, but he still looked pretty good in that game, and he's looking better each week, and I'm happy to see his progression. But he's not the plus this week for the Bengals. It was Joe Mixon. First game back, 25 rushes for 151 yards.
First game back. He's been here this whole season.
I'm saying I should clarify that. Back to what we think Joe Mixon should be doing.
Yeah, from 2 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, just a quick highlight: 31 for 61 in week 2. 30.
Yeah, in week 2.
37 for 61. Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
I just wanted to get that exact
game.
number, just because that's. Whew.
Yeah. But go back to Mixon. He had 25 rushes for 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 6 receptions for 30 yards and a receiving touchdown. The man was on fire all day. Could not be stopped by this Jacksonville defense at all. Had a great game. And it was good to see. I like Joe Mixon. I like the talent that he brings to this, Cincinnati offense, and finally it got to show. And, it wasn't just the Burrow show. The negative was that their secondary was almost non-existent. Minshew was allowed to tear them open in the middle of the field all game, and that's been his MO all season. And if the defense can't game plan to that, what do they have? It's so apparent on tape that he just makes people pay in the middle of the field all game long, and you can't defend that? I don't understand that at all. Moving on to Jacksonville, the positive for me was Minshew spreading the ball around nicely. I think he had 5 receivers above 35 yards. It was just a tight game for Minshew. They didn't come out on top in this one, but I thought it was a pretty good game. James Robinson had a really good game too. 17 rushes for 75 yards, 4 receptions for 32 yards. No touchdowns this game, but he's still a big part of this offense, a lot bigger part than any other running back that they have. The negative for Jacksonville was their defense could not stop this offensive assault that the Bengals had all game long. It wasn't the running game. It was Burrow making a tight pass to either Boyd or T. Higgins, my boy that has been sitting on my fantasy bench for a while, but I think I'm going to start him this week. He's coming out of his shell as a rookie wide receiver, and it's nice to see. But this Jacksonville defense needs work. That's what's losing them these games. It's not Minshew. It's the defense. Can't stop a feather in the wind.
No. Let's talk about a sad game. Minnesota, Houston.
Oh,
we say goodbye.
This wasn't a sad game.
It made me sad because I watched 2 teams that were in the playoffs last year just look like they were fighting to hump a football. Goodbye, Bill O'Brien. Let's just start with the positives for Houston. You got rid of your GM.
And head coach.
So Romeo Cromwell's going to come in as interim head coach. This season is a dust. Look, no, dusting a season is never good, but if you're gonna dust a season, this is the best season to dust.
Yeah.
This is the best one.
Your offensive talent isn't there to make a deep playoff run. Your defensive talent is not there to make a playoff run.
I just want to talk about the true positive for this team is that they have Deshaun Watson, who is an elite top 5 NFL quarterback. I am very high on the kid. I don't know top 5. Kid. I think he's the same age as me. I'm not gonna look. I watch him play. The stats is a different thing, but I watch him play, dude. He's killing it. He's
a better Dak Prescott.
Coming into this season, they had the same numbers, and Deshaun Watson has been handicapped by his team. Dak Prescott has been elevated by his team. Yes. So, there was just a lot of foobar in this game. Minnesota needed this win.
That they did.
I think that they are going to rally around this. I think they're figuring themselves out a little more. Mike Zimmer's not going to let the defense continue to be garbage. He's going to find ways to make adjustments, I think. Houston will not.
Good this game.
Yeah, he's making adjustments. The offense is getting a little better. We see teams get off to really hard starts and then pick it up. So I want to see Minnesota week 2, or not week 2, but next week. Overall, Minnesota got Dalvin Cook was a big positive. They got the ball moving, and they were able to make stops on defense. So and that's the positive. The negatives are still there. Kirk Cousins was Kirk Cousins. This defense was still letting up plays. It was a tough game. It's a game that you think that these were 2 playoff teams last year.
Yeah. I'm going to start with Minnesota. Dalvin Cook had an absolute day. He looked amazing. 27 rushes for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he had both of those touchdowns in the first half. But he had a couple receptions, I think, for like 20 yards as well. But the offense was finally moving. Justin Jefferson is getting involved. Kirk Cousins is not looking terrible. He
looks like Kirk Cousins, he
looks like Kirk Cousins, where he's going to get you the win, but it's going to look very ugly. And I think that's a definite positive. The negative for Minnesota was their secondary allowed Deshaun Watson to throw all day against them. After that Harrison Smith ejection, it was a lot easier.
Jesus. We got to cut that out.
Oh, no, we don't. That is ESPN telling me that from multiple reports, J.J. Watt got into a heated argument and exchange with Bill O'Brien during Week 3's practice. Moving on to Houston, I thought the only positive was that Deshaun Watson was staying up on his feet with such a terrible offensive line. He got sacked, I think, one time during this game. That's impressive. His pocket was non-existent all game, and he was throwing off his back heel all game.
His pocket is like women jeans pockets. There's just nothing there.
Non-existent. The big negative was that they could not capitalize on 3 red zone attempts. That if they did, they would have been up in this game, and I think Minnesota would have struggled to have a comeback. They settled for 3 field goals when I think they were within the 2 of them were within the 10-yard line, and one of them was within the 20.
They nearly had the win at the end of the game with Will Fuller if he was able to. I was
just about to say that.
Yes.
He got Dez Bryanted.
No, he was down for the end zone. He was down for the end zone.
From what I saw with that catch, it looked like he made the catch. He still had possession, and it barely got touched by the ground, and it moved a little bit, but his hands were still on the ball.
I thought he was down at the 1-yard line, but either which way.
No, it was in the end zone. It was in the end zone, and he was inbounds in the end zone, both feet, and they said that the ground caused it not
motion of the ball.
A motion of the ball. But he had both hands on the ball, and the ball moved a little bit, but his hand stayed on the ball. I think he got Dez Bryanted. And I think that
the ground cannot it's a complicated
it can't
rule.
Impede on the catch.
I don't think he got
line.
Bryanted, but I definitely I don't think it was a catch.
I thought it was a catch. But moving on, Houston needs to do better. They need to capitalize, and
they're going to win like 4 or 5 games this season, just like we said. Seattle went to Miami this week, and the game was real tight.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been. I called it last week.
I'll say we talked about that if there was an upset this week, that it was going to be Miami. That didn't happen because Miami decided they liked field goals more than touchdowns. But Seattle didn't look great in this game. This is now 2 games in a row that they've seemed to slow down a little bit.
Yeah. I'm going to start with Seattle, actually. The only positive that I really saw, besides their offense, their offense is good. They get moving and they chuck the ball downfield. Russell's one of the best deep ball throwers, I think, of all time. So it's not a surprise that they had a great offensive day. But their defense actually stepped up this game. It didn't really look like it when Fitzpatrick was tearing them open over the middle the entire game. But their defense had 2 picks. They were getting after Fitzpatrick. Finally, I think they had 2 sacks, but still not the best for that pass rush. But it's an improvement. And this defense was competing all game, and Fitzpatrick was just really good today in that game. He just was. He put on a show because I think he knew everybody was watching. And, the defense forced 5 field goals this game for Seattle's defense did, and 2 interceptions. That is a great day for any defense, getting a team off the field when so they don't score touchdowns, especially with Miami's receivers who have been balling out this year. It's difficult to keep them out of the end zone, and they did. Definite negative for Seattle was that their pass rush wasn't really effective any other time than they got those 2 sacks, and they kept pressure on Fitzpatrick, but they just couldn't finish all the time. And one of those sacks was lucky, and it was outside the pocket. But the pass rush needs to get a lot better. It needs to be at least one step up for that defense to get better. The defense is pretty stagnant right now. Their DBs are solid, and their linebackers are solid. But that front 4, no, not at all. The positives for Miami this week, obviously, Fitzpatrick's still carving up the field. 29 for 45, 315 yards. He didn't get a throwing touchdown, obviously. He did get a rushing touchdown, but he threw those 2 picks that allowed Seattle to really take the lead and run with it. But the obvious negative for Miami was that there was no secondary to speak of. It seemed like, was it David Moore? Is that his name? David Moore?
Yeah, that last play.
David Moore and DK were tearing up that secondary all game. I think there was a couple good plays on DK from the secondary, but besides that, no, that secondary was non-existent. Couldn't stop a feather in the wind.
Seattle seems to be doing what Seattle does, which is get off to these immaculate starts and then kind of slows up a little bit.
I don't see them slowing down until they really hit like a really big competitor. So if they play, they're not really going to get it from San Francisco this year, obviously.
I disagree, but so they go in to play Minnesota this week. So
which is a competitor that I think that can beat Seattle.
If Minnesota wins this game, that's huge momentum for Minnesota. If Minnesota loses this game, I think then there's some serious concern for Minnesota.
I think there's one factor that will determine if Minnesota wins this game or not, and that's the running game. If Alexander Madison and Dalvin Cook get started, it's done. Minnesota wins this game. Because if Minnesota can get a lead on Seattle and force Seattle to throw, their defense obviously isn't the best, so Seattle's going to have a field day. But if Kirk Cousins and that offense can continue rolling, build on momentum, then this game is going to be a fight.
You have to dictate the clock because Seattle can score in 5 minutes or they can score in a minute. Let's talk about running games. Cleveland, Dallas. This game hurt my soul. Let's start with Cleveland. Your pros. Kevin Stefanski has got this offense moving. He's got this running game, the offensive. Everything is clicking a little bit better for this team.
A little bit better at this point than last season. That's for sure.
So here's my negatives. What's up with Baker? What's up with Baker? This is
my negative as well.
concerning me. And I've been a big Baker supporter. I don't think last year was a fair critique on him. Maybe he needs another year because he didn't really get to develop last year. I don't know.
He was stunted last year. There was no growth. He was
worrisome to me that in a game where they were so dominant that he wasn't doing much. And now, granted, in the Bengals game he looked better, but that does make me nervous. And this secondary is getting lit the fuck up. What are your pros and cons for Cleveland, and then we'll move on to Dallas.
So my pro for Cleveland is obviously OBJ had a career day. I don't know if it's his actually best career day, but 5 receptions for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both touchdowns impressive, and then 2 rushes, one at the end of the game to really seal it.
Smith makes that tackle. Cowboys are winning this game.
Your defender tackles Jarvis Landry instead of OBJ. That's wild.
Alden Smith was on OBJ. He was right there. He just has to come up with that tackle.
Yeah.
And
but there's a block right in front that watch that play. Jarvis Landry is going to block, and the Cowboys second, I forgot who it was, tackled Jarvis Landry and not the ball carrier. So it was really kind of sad. But
I think at that point I was
OBJ ended with
a pillow.
OBJ ended with 2 rushes, 73 yards, and 1 touchdown. The negatives were Baker did not look comfortable. I have like 3 negatives for this game for Cleveland, even though they showed out on like points wise. Baker looked uncomfortable all day long. He was forced to make back foot throws a lot in this game, and he was still zipping them in there to his receivers, but that pass rush was getting to him, and I was nervous watching his play this game. And then an obvious big one was Chubb getting injured. He's out at least 6 games, maybe even more. So we'll go week to week on that, but it's not looking good for the rest of his season if he can't get back within the next 7 to 8 weeks.
I don't know, man. They picked up right fucking from where they left off.
Yeah,
after he went down.
They got the other running back came in and did
Johnson
really well.
And Kareem Hunt.
Yes. And then the secondary, absolutely blown up all game by Dak Prescott.
Except for that last play.
Except for the last play.
What the fuck was that?
That leads us right into Dallas. I'll let him. I want to speak about what I thought I saw from Dallas, and then I'll let you
go for it.
Positives for Dallas. I think the only positive I saw for Dallas this game was Dak Prescott. And it's odd to say because he threw the interception at the end of the game, but I'll give him the same reasoning that I gave Justin Herbert. Dak Prescott was doing really well until I get that, but he did very well in this game. Over 500 yards. He threw 58 times. So that's another reason. He was 41 for 58, 502 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He did also fumble it. And that gave Cleveland really good field position.
What really changed the tide of this game? Was it maybe the 2 fumbles in a fucking row by the offense that turned into touchdowns?
Yeah. Ezekiel Elliott also had a fumble. It just wasn't the best end, I would say. Dak Prescott had a good game going in, even with the fumble. He had a good game because the fumble was kind of up in the air about like whose fault it really was, in my opinion. Moving on to the negative was there was no run game for Dallas at all. I think Elliott had 58 yards total for the game.
2 weeks in a row.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Ezekiel Elliott is top 3 running backs in the league, guaranteed, and you don't run him? Are you serious? I understand that this Cleveland front 4 is pretty damn good, but he's Ezekiel Elliott. So I automatically think because the thing that was going around in the offseason with McCarthy was that the reason he wasn't being successful every season in Green Bay was because he didn't have a solid running back, because that's the kind of offense that he likes to run. Run to pass, or pass making the run better. Where is that? Where is that? You have a top 3, possibly top 2 running back at this point with all the injuries. What?
Well,
I don't understand.
Yeah. This is the same shit that happened last year with Kellen. Okay.
You're getting too conservative with passing the ball as a Dallas Cowboys. You need to run it. You need to punch teams in their mouth, and you have the perfect back to do that, but you're not utilizing him. It's frustrating.
Yeah. All right. Let's just.
I'm sure exponentially for you.
Let's just start this off with the positives, which are limited.
CeeDee Lamb is definitely one.
The receivers are a positive. The receivers are doing great this season.
Amari Cooper is, I would say, an elite wide receiver that does not get elite wide receiver talks.
Him and Stephon Diggs.
Yes. Well, Stephon gets the elite talks. Amari Cooper
is right now. He is right now, but he did not before this couple try. Receivers are doing well. There are a lot of injuries. I want to share that. Joe Looney went out first play of the game. There have been a lot of injuries. Dak is playing well in the second halves, I guess. I want to get to the negatives because there's a lot of it here. This defense quit. This defensive coordinator needs to go. This defense has looked miserable with him.
Yeah.
Ezekiel Elliott has looked terrible this year. He has fumbled now 5 or 6 times, and that's unacceptable. Dak Prescott is making incredibly dumb decisions. He's taking sacks he doesn't need to take. Games. Nope, at the beginning of games too. He had a chance to throw the ball out to avoid a sack, took the sack instead.
Yeah.
The fumble, I will give him kudos for because it was from Myles Garrett, that's what Myles Garrett does. That happens.
Yeah.
This offense is all over the place. I didn't like that Kellen Moore was retained on play calling for the offense. They're not doing enough play action. Look, here's the deal. I am an express Dak Prescott disliker as a player. This is last year all over again. Same exact shit. And the defense is playing worse. Aldon Smith is
because you don't have your 2 starting middle linebackers.
That is also a huge problem. Injuries.
Nelson Vander Esch is one of the best linebackers in the league when he's playing.
Just like Philadelphia, IR is becoming quickly our best player. And it's not a player you want to have.
That's not what you want to start each week.
Philadelphia's getting it together though, so. Look, they're doing a song and dance. Look, Dak Prescott is a pro and a negative at quarterback. I don't want to sit here and talk about the Cowboys for like an hour, but this defense quit this game. It was so obvious towards the end of the game.
Especially that OBG run.
You can't play a shitty 3/4 of a game and then go all out and expect to do well. All of Dak's success is coming in like the late 3rd, 4th quarter now. We should be 0-4 if Atlanta's players understand that they can jump on that ball.
Yeah.
Look, it's not working.
Season.
It's not working.
Think about that this week.
It's not working. Whatever this is doing, it's not working.
Do you think it's McCarthy?
Yes and no. I think that Mike McCarthy is making some of the same mistakes he made in Green Bay, but Kellen Moore is the play caller, not Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I know that.
And I didn't like Kellen Moore's offense last year, and I don't like it this year.
And he should have gotten rid of anybody that had ties to Jason Garrett. Anybody. It doesn't work.
Obviously, the defense needs to get the defensive coordinator needs to go. That needs to happen. Turnovers need to stop. These fumbles need to stop. If they got to play an entire day saran wrapped with fucking around their football hands, that's it. This team has, like we've seen it, this team has the capability to put up 38 points. This team, I've been in this exact fucking situation before. I believe it was 2013. when we had the 32nd ranked defense. We currently, I believe, have the 32nd ranked defense, and Tony Romo was lighting teams up on offense, and our defense couldn't stop a wet napkin. It was 2012 or 2013 that we had the 32nd ranked defense. I'm
saying this season you definitely do not, though.
I believe right now we're ranked towards the bottom, if not at the bottom. Our defense has been miserable. So I mean that's where I'm at. It's bad. But you know what else is good is Washington, Baltimore. You good there?
Yeah, I'm trying to look up the defensive stats here. Just give me a second.
It's bad. So Baltimore looked good. We're gonna move on because I'm gonna just try and get happy again. Baltimore looked good. They needed a rebound game here. I think we all expected them to win this game. The offense looked like it was clicking a little more. Although this team looks like it's kind of missing a step right now, if I'm honest. They don't have that same edge they did last year. I don't know if it's what.
It's just they had this certain swagger last year that just could not be brought down.
I think Lamar's in his head. I think what's right now,
right.
I think it's there. Lamar is a very emotional player.
Look at all that pressure.
He's a very emotional player. Like, I'm gonna be real with you. You can see in that Chiefs game, he was not mentally there. His edge was not there.
He was in the second half. He was
getting better, but I'm a huge.
I brought that up last week that his mental game is better this season than it was last season because how they were losing to the Tennessee Titans and he just gave up.
Yeah, this running game is not at all what it was last year. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, they're not getting that going. It's not opening up the pass like they used to.
This defense is doing well. The secondary is not great right now, so they got to make some adjustments there. Overall, this is still a roster that you cannot sell short. This team will still, even right now, like we talk about, like they're 3-1. They're still beating up teams. They scored 31 points here against Washington. They're still doing well. So as much as I'm worried, I still think this is a good team. This might be a team that just needs a minute to figure it out. There's changes, and it happens to every team.
Yeah.
Washington, you unlocked Antonio Gibson finally in a game. So the running game was working great. Terry McLaurin is still a stud muffin. This defensive pass rush is still all right. I know they've had some injuries there as well. But you have the building blocks of this is a team again. This is a week in, week out. These bottom 7 teams. It's the same week in, week out stuff. Now that Kyle Allen's in, things might be a little more stable. I don't think you're going to win games with it, but you're a little more stable.
Your chance to win games is a lot better than with Haskins.
It's more stable for sure. You probably put up 21 points instead of 17 or 24. But you have the building blocks to have a successful team here in the future. And Ron Rivera is looking healthier. So we hope to continue to see that.
Yeah. He did. He is still taking some breaks on the sideline to sit down. Understandable though. The man's going through chemo. But he is looking. He is looking to have a good season, and he is not having one. I'm going to start with Baltimore. Obvious plus is the offense had a field day. They got back into some sort of groove with at least scoring points that they didn't get against Kansas City. Their negative is their quote unquote elite defense allowed Haskins to throw 315 yards.
A lot of it was at the end of the game.
Point.
I will give
it was
credit.
garbage. It was garbage time.
Soft coverage, prevent defense.
And I'll give that to him, but still, even in the prime time of the game, he was throwing to McLaurin just nasty passes.
That's McLaurin, baby.
Baltimore just let him have it.
Look,
and
McLaurin's an elite wide receiver, so he's going to do that.
Yeah, I think that was a good pickup in your fantasy. That leads me to the positives for Washington. McLaurin is obviously one. He has been for the last 3 weeks, I think, for me, the only positive for Washington. However, I'll give him another person that you mentioned. Antonio Gibson had a day. 13 rushes for 46 yards and a touchdown, and then 4 receptions for 82 yards. That's pretty good for a Washington running back. That is pretty darn
Yeah,
good.
and they've been hesitant to, I think, throw to him, and he's clearly, I think, their best running back. And Kyle Allen is the master of disaster when it comes to throwing to your running back 2 yards away from you. He is the next Phillip Rivers.
Hopefully not.
Let me throw to you right there sideways, and you go do this. I'm on it.
Well, I mean, so moving on to the negative for Washington, they have no pass rush whatsoever. I know Chase Young is out, nursing an injury. He obviously wants to get back really soon. I saw him on the sidelines during the game. They only had 1 sack, and it was for 2 yards against Lamar, who was dominated by Kansas City last week. Lamar makes it very easy to get sacks on him a lot of time. You just have to clutch them and get them. But just 1 sack all game. Their defense was non-existent. It was just sad to watch.
Yeah, this is a hard game. I want to talk about a game that concerned me a lot. New York, LA. Look, New York looks like shit. Yeah. Look, New York's it's bad. This season's bad. Daniel Jones.
Are you gonna give me my fucking credit on Daniel Jones yet, or what?
No, because I don't. I want to look. I like what I saw last year. Tell me what quarterback would succeed right now in this situation where like half your players are hurt. It's just a clusterfuck. I want to see next year. Look, I'll tell you what. I'm not as on Daniel Jones right now. I've come down on him a bit. I'm not like a Daniel Jones fan. I just think that he did better last year. I will defend people when I feel like
all year
because I think that you're a little too harsh on him. That being said,
it's just the same as Haskins.
There are no positives right now. There are no positives for the New York Giants right now. This team is bad. It is in a circle of just destruction. But the Rams. What the fuck was this performance? This team looked wholly unimpressive. I think it's reinforcing the understanding that Jared Goff is not an elite quarterback. He's an average quarterback. When the game isn't,
he just had different play calling than he has the last 3 weeks.
2 weeks in a row, Darrell Henderson is lighting teams up. You nearly beat Buffalo, and then you run Malcolm Brown and barely beat the Giants 9-17. You're gonna put up 31 points against the Bills, who are an elite team this year, and then you're gonna put up 17 against the New York Giants. Get out of here! Get out of here!
I don't think that's Jared Goff's fault though. I don't.
Look, dude. When I was watching over this game, Jared Goff was not making when the game was actually up to him, he was terrible. Malcolm Brown looked like shit. I don't know why they didn't run Darrell Henderson. I got to ask McVay that question. I'll get his number up here in a minute and text him.
Because we got all the plugs.
Me and Sean McVay were tight.
We're best buds.
So this team is coming. It's Icarus. This team is Icarus this season. This is the team that's flying a little close to the sun that everybody was kind of quick to jump back on. And I think that when this team starts having to play some of these other teams, they're not going to do well because Jared Goff is a mediocre quarterback.
Okay, I'll start with.
I got one positive here though. I do have a positive here. Your receivers are really good, and your defense has potential. Yeah, this defense did have potential, although I was somewhat unimpressed at times that they weren't getting more sacks.
Defense was great this game.
I wanted more sacks and interceptions.
That will lead me to my.
They had a good defense. Okay, this offense just.
Los Angeles sacked Daniel Jones 5 times, and they should have had 8. I counted them 8. Where Daniel Jones escaped 3 barely and threw the ball away. They should have had 8 sacks against Daniel Jones. So their defense did great today. I disagree with that. They kept them.
I'm just playing around
to 9 points. Okay, fair enough. They had 9 points. Stopped them for 3 field goals. Man, that's really good. So I disagree with that part of your argument. That's my positive for Los Angeles was their pass rush. That was it. I thought their offense looked slow, stagnant. They were throwing 5 yards at a time, like just little dish offs, to Cooper Kupp or to a running back. It just wasn't effective today. And I don't think it was Jared Goff. I think it was the play calling. The play calling just seemed off all game. And I agree with you that they should have ran Darrell Henderson a lot more than they did Malcolm Brown. All day run Darrell Henderson. He was doing really well. And that leads me to my negative. They only rushed for 61 yards. The Rams.
Against a defense that is a joke.
That's the positive, actually, for me this game. New York's defense stepped up when they needed to. That's plain and simple. They shut down Jared Goff and that offense from getting going. Their momentum was stuffed early in the game, and I think that really had an effect. Going into New York, though, so the positive was their defense did all right against the Rams when we expected them to get blown up. They forced Jared Goff into some bad throws with a pretty good pass rush that was in his face all day. But the big positive for New York for me was the rush game wasn't bad. It was actually pretty good. Combined over the committee of 3 running backs, they had 130 yards. That's not too shabby. You can't shy away from 130 yards, especially when Daniel Jones only threw for like 166 or something like that. Yeah, Daniel Jones was terrible today, and that's my negative. Was that offense could not find a rhythm and could not capitalize on red zone appearances.
Yeah.
This team is going down the tank, and they are getting Trevor Lawrence this year, if not the Jets. Daniel Jones is a failed experiment, and I refuse to give him like any credit beyond he'll be a backup quarterback.
He might be. He really might be. I make no quarrels that I don't think Daniel Jones can fail. I definitely thought last year was better, but we'll see what happens. Let's get to the final New York team here. Buffalo and Raiders. Buffalo continues the streak. They looked great this year.
Definitely forgot that Buffalo was in New York for a second.
It's its own state. It's going to secede. Josh Allen is continuing to put his ballot in for MVP.
That's my positive. Jared Allen continues MVP parade.
He's right there. Look, maybe people think I'm crazy, but at week 4, I don't know if I could tell you who I truly think is MVP between him and Wilson. I truly think that they are equivalent, and I think that Buffalo has played harder teams.
I would agree to that.
Sean McDermott is coach of the year right now, though. Hands down, this team is the same as playing great. The negatives for me come on defense, ironically. It's getting better, but the defense is still a little clunky sometimes at stopping the running game at times. Granted, this Raiders O-line isn't great.
Los Angeles last week.
Yeah, so it's getting better. They're figuring it out more. I will say a negative on this offense, though, is that, I don't know if it's truly negative, but the Bills' running game, I think, can improve.
That's my negative.
Look at that. I don't think Singletary can do it alone. Like, if we're being 100% real.
Yeah, I agree.
So there are concerns there for that. The Raiders, though. I want to talk about the Raiders. They played well this season. I know that they've lost. They're 2-2 now. They've played well for the most part. This defense has things it needs to figure out, and this offense needs receivers. They need a pass catching weapon bad, because they're not able to get Josh Jacobs rolling out, and they're not able to get any play action moving because Hunter Renfrow, as nice as he is not a wide receiver 1. They need Ruggs back to try and move this ball more. Waller's great, but again, defenses aren't going to give Waller respect past like the 20-yard line. Like, it's a tight end, and it's not George Kittle or Kelsey.
I think he's up there with the ability of Kittle.
I don't
think he's reached that potential, but I think
he has the ability. Phenomenal tight end. I think that he will replace Zach Ertz as the 3rd best tight end in the NFL right now to me.
Okay.
I don't think that he's on par with Kelsey and Kittle, but I think that he's right below them. I think he's really doing well in this system. But I also want to point this out. It's not a secret that Derek Carr and John Gruden do not get along, and that this John Gruden system and Derek Carr do not mesh. So I don't I think the Raiders are in an odd spot because I think they have a team that's about 6 wins right now, maybe 7, and maybe 8 if they really confuse up some teams in a COVID season. But this team, I feel like it's capped in certain ways.
I think if John Gruden doesn't get fired this year, he'll get fired next year.
I don't think they'll fire him. I think they'll keep him for the whole 10 years because this team has made improvements, but this offense has not. The defense has. Like this defense has.
John Gruden cannot be calling your offensive plays. That's what it comes down to. John Gruden cannot be calling your offensive plays.
This is not 2003 where you just run the ball 1,000 times. And they have a running back though that is talented. So that's the Raiders and Carolina are I think really similar teams in terms of talent. But Carolina is finding a way to get their offense to play above what it should be, I think. And
somebody told me
the Raiders are not. Somebody
told me the other day that Josh Jacobs was drafted to be the next Warren Dunn, or the running back from Tampa Bay when they won the Super Bowl in 2003 with Gruden.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's an accurate, because they're both smaller backs but power backs.
Look, Josh Jacobs has the potential to be like a top 5 running back in the NFL. Like
he gets a good offensive line.
Yeah, this offense needs to figure something. That's the difference, is that Carolina is figuring it out and the Raiders are not.
Yeah.
And we saw them manhandle the Saints. They manhandled the
Saints. Saints led them.
No, I'm saying but this team. This team found a way to, the Saints messed up and they found a way to hold it against them. So that Raiders team needs to show up efficiency, strength, and energy, as opposed to kind of lulls.
Getting into my positives and negatives. Buffalo, already said them. Positive is Jared Allen continues his MVP parade. Negative
Jared Allen
game. Yeah, Jared Allen. Yeah, that's what I mean. Josh Allen. I'm so sorry. Josh Allen continues his MVP parade, and I do that all the time, and I will continue to do it. I hope you guys know that I mean Josh Allen, but I will say Jared Allen because he tormented me for 5 or so years on that Minnesota defense each year. So Josh Allen continues his MVP parade, and the rushing game is the problem for the Bills. They need to have some sort of threat on. Devin Singletary is not going to be it. He's a really good back, and he's very talented, especially at pass catching, but he is not an elite runner. Then moving on to Las Vegas, the only positive I saw that in this entire game was Derek Carr kept them in this game. That was it. The run game is the negative. There is no run game again for the second week in a row. Josh Jacobs had 15 rushes for only 48 yards.
Derek Carr is the most disrespected quarterback in the NFL.
I think he deserves some of the stuff he gets for sure. I don't have high faith in Derek Carr to win games, but I think a lot of it comes from the personnel that he has. I don't think it's him. I think a lot of it is his personnel, but Derek Carr doesn't help things a lot of the time.
He was an MVP candidate had he not shattered his leg. Mm-hmm. He would have probably won MVP that year.
Sucks to suck. Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith for Las Vegas moving forward in the season. I think they've reached probably their peak of what they're going to be, offensively at least. I don't think they're going to have too many games where they have just a shootout like they did with New Orleans, but we'll see. Yeah, do you want to move to?
We'll move to the Colts Bears.
Yeah.
This absolute miserable fuck fest of a game.
Yeah. So I think I was wrong in my assessment of Nick Foles. I don't think
he looked so bad.
He looked bad. So I will start with Chicago. The only positive I saw for Chicago was the pressure that was on Philip Rivers all game long.
This is still an elite defense. Don't get me wrong. This is still
Nope. Disagree with that. Pressure up front is really good. Their front line and is very good, but their linebackers and secondary are trash this year. They're getting lit up for points every single game, and if it's a slow start, that's obvious reason, but I don't think they're elite. I think they have a really good front, but that's it. They kept pressure on Philip Rivers all game long and made him throw some weird throws and some really bad ones where it was just like, you're a quarterback in the NFL and you throw that ball. But the negative for Chicago is Nick Foles looked just as good as Trubisky. I didn't see the difference in quarterback play. I didn't. I thought Nick Foles, I think he has a better knack for things downfield than Trubisky does. But I saw the same kind of play, man. It was just average.
Yeah.
And then the big negative for me was there was no rushing game for Chicago Bears at all. And they were only down by
Trubisky.
7 points. They were only down by like 7 points half the game. Like more than half the game, they were only down by 7 points. You could run. Only getting David Montgomery, who's your leading rusher, and I think the majority of the runs is 27 yards. And then the next closest had like 8 yards. That doesn't make sense to me. David Montgomery is supposed to be this power back that is supposed to allow you to open up the play action and get your offense moving down the field. Give him the damn ball then. I don't understand that at all.
In my life, I would think, wow, this team looked better with Trubisky.
That's what I said, man. Trubisky, I just felt like the offense was moving better with Trubisky.
The run game was
overall
sure better.
Overall, but the passing game runs better with Foles.
Foles is a much better. Look,
but let me get to Indianapolis real fast.
Okay, yeah, get to Indianapolis. Get yourself
Indianapolis
there.
is only real positive because they only scored, I think, 17 points this game.
19 points.
No, 19 points. It was not a good offensive day for the Colts. Rivers obviously was under pressure all game, but he had poise all game. He only got sacked once, and I think he threw one interception. But he had poise all game that I think just comes from being a veteran. He stayed in the pocket and took hits all game long from those defensive linemen. But the negative for Indianapolis was their secondary, which had been touted for the first 3 weeks, looked slow. Nick Foles was throwing over the top on them all the time, and that cannot happen at all.
Yeah, so I'll start with the Colts. I'll do a little inverse of what you did. The old Philip Rivers nightmare of an inability to get in the red zone reappeared. They were kicking field goals all day. Now, granted, their receiving core has been hurt, but they still have 2 good tight ends and a great running back in Jonathan Taylor, a great pass-catching running back in Nyheim Hines. Well, great might be strong, but this is the inability of Philip Rivers. He makes dumb decisions with the football, and he has a struggle with the red zone a lot of times, especially against better defenses. Indianapolis, this was my concern, was that this is how they were going to win games, which was just this kind of slugfest, just you don't get to score, we don't really score, that I'm worried about when they play other teams like Baltimore, Kansas City, that they're not going to be able to do that.
I have a feeling that they're going to end up having a good season still, like 11 wins or so, but
they'll be a first out if they make the playoffs.
Yes,
they'll either end up playing
say
like
about
this,
how it was a terrible 11-5 season, like how they barely got there, just like they did with the Packers. 13-3
they'll be like the worst. Yeah, they'll be like the worst team in the playoffs. They'll either beat the 7th seed or something like that and make it, and then get annihilated by Kansas City or something. But
yeah,
the pros are the same. They were still, the offensive line was playing like this team. The core of this team was still doing what it's supposed to do. They just couldn't get in the red zone. If they got in the red zone, this score is a lot different. So I mean that is the positive. I guess it's both negative and positive. But Chicago, it's rough. This is rough. Your defense is still a good defense. You might not agree to where it stands in the NFL. I definitely still think this is an elite unit. Maybe they're not playing like it, but this offense is. I know the offensive line is not good, but you're not running the game with your power back. You're not getting the ball out to Anthony Miller, your deep threat. You're not getting the ball to Allen Robinson reliably. So I don't know what's going on here. I don't think there was a positive this game. I really don't.
I mean, they struggled. They struggled all day on offense, all day, and they only got garbage time points.
They're playing a team that they should be able to hang with and possibly beat.
Yes. This is a perfect matchup for them.
Yeah,
a matchup where if the quarterback struggles, you can have a good game, but Chicago's offense couldn't capitalize.
Yeah, no, it was bad. Philadelphia, New York, Philadelphia, San Francisco. Philly got a win, baby. 1-2-1. Go Birds. They deserve the division, I guess. Both these teams are ravaged by injuries. I'm not worried about San Francisco. The backups just had a terrible day. Like I
hated watching this game.
Nick, just fun fact: more people watched this than Game 3 of the NBA Finals, though.
Oh, Game 3 was so good. Go Heat, by the way. Go Heat.
Nah, this is for Kobe.
No, go Heat.
I love both these.
I love Kobe, but I do not like LeBron James.
Well, this is football, not basketball, Carl.
Yeah. We could make it be a little bit better in this game, at least.
No, so there are a lot of injuries. Nick Mullins did not look hot this game. I want to share a stat that I found out, and I think it's the most alarming stat I've ever heard. Alarming, I guess not alarming, but George Kittle's never had a multi-touchdown game.
Yeah, I when I was watching the game, I heard that.
And that was the most stunning thing I think I've ever heard, because this is a guy who's arguably the best tight end, is elite. The Niners team is looking better. I'm going to be honest. This offense is looking a little bit better now that people are coming back. So in like another week or two, when Jimmy G comes back and they have the pieces again, this defensive line is still holding its own because of the depth. Considering that they've lost, the productivity they're getting, considering who they lost, this is an amazing job for them. Like they lost two of the best defensive linemen in the NFL, and they're still holding on games here. This was a close game. I mean, my negatives for the Niners were that their quarterbacks weren't able to get things moving, and injuries have routinely just plagued them. Philadelphia, I understand that you're missing a lot of people, but Carson Wentz's play is alarming.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that. So,
and also, how do you overthrow Miles Sanders 3 yards away from you every single time? Don't hit him in the ankle and don't hit over his head. Just throw it at his chest. What is going on?
That sounds like someone who has Miles Sanders in fantasy that
Shut up!
Really needs him to do well.
I just don't Look, Miles Sanders is like their best offensive player right now. So I'm confused how he's not being used.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Carson Wentz is not looking hot right now.
The offense is a conundrum to me. I'll start with Philly. I'll start with their positive. Start off on good note.
The defense played really well. I guess I didn't highlight that.
The pass rush was consistent all game long. Those defensive linemen were in Mullins' mouth all day and forced him to throw, I think, 2 picks. They got 5 sacks on him. Should have had 6 or 7. It was a good defensive stand from Philadelphia, and if they didn't have that, they would have lost this game. Carson Wentz is definitely the negative. He looks sloppy. That's the best adjective.
Afraid. That's the best way I put it. He looks scared.
Yeah, he looks tentative to make any kind of decision, and you cannot have that in the NFL.
This feels like the kind of guy that kind of Tannehills it a little bit, who kind of has this big slump in their career, and then they go to another team and they have like a couple years of productivity before they retire. And we're all kind of like, that was the guy we liked.
Maybe he'll go to Dallas.
I'd like that. Carson Wentz still has a lot of potential as a quarterback. He's just playing afraid this season, and I don't know if it's
his offensive line.
It does not help when everybody is dead. Like, he's basically playing on the field with a bunch of corpses.
With Doug Peterson not having the best play calling either.
One of the most overrated coaches of all time. Of the past 10 years. I don't care.
Overrated, but
if he had not won that single Super Bowl, he would not be on this team. If they had not kind of Seattled that Super Bowl and had a huge depth at defense and kind of rotated through, it was a miracle. It was a miracle run. Like, Big Dick Nick played like lights out. It's just a miracle run.
Yeah.
They have. I'm not trying to take it away from them. I'm not trying to argue that. I'm just saying I think Doug Peterson has gotten away with like Pete Carroll has gotten away with certain things because of the success early in his career.
Yeah,
with the Seahawks.
I would agree with that. So moving on to San Francisco, I think the positive was George Kittle. Obviously, he had 15 receptions, first game back for 183 yards and a touchdown. You can't have any better of a game unless you're Robert Tonyan this week for a tight end. It was amazing. He was their entire offense. 183 yards. Mullins only passed for 200. And majority of these yards came from Mullins. So that is.
McKinnon had a great week too. I think he gets a little. Yeah. I think he was undersold this week.
And Brandon Ayuk had a 38-yard run.
Brandon Ayuk had that the hurdle.
Jumped over the defender to get into the end zone. Beautiful. The negative for San Francisco is they cannot decide on their backup.
They got Debo back this week. They got Debo back, and he's going to be a little slow, but this offense has a lot of lethality.
Yeah. But like I said, the negative is their quarterback play. You can't you can't win games with quarterbacks playing like that, plain and simple. Especially against a team like Philadelphia, where you should dominate them like you did in New York last week. They should dominate Philly, and they didn't. Yeah. Moving on to
I think you're going to say the Pats-Chiefs game. I want to talk about Falcons-Packers first. I want to end with the Chiefs-Pats game.
No, I want to end with the Packers. It's my one time this season I get to end with the Packers.
Oh my, fine, okay. We'll talk about the Chiefs-Patriots.
Thank you.
I think that there was less to talk about with the Falcons game, which is why I want to talk about it.
But I think there's less to talk about in this game. This game has way less to talk about.
The Patriots offense looked like shit, all right? Even with Hoyer, whichever one you want to pick. That being said, I think that there was a particular play fairly early into this game that would have shifted a lot of momentum for this game had the referees not completely the Patriots. And it's ironic because on social media, all the Patriots fans were furious. And all I could think about was all the years where the Patriots got these calls all the time. And now they've been patrioted. And I laughed at that. But at the same time, I also said, this might be the worst call I've ever seen in my life.
You want to explain the call to the audience here?
So Patrick Mahomes is... And granted, I saw the highlights of this play. I was cooking dinner, so I missed this.
I watched it live, and I was upset.
I watched about 30 times on Instagram because I was so confused. I wasn't called. If I remember correctly, Patrick Mahomes is basically trying to get the ball out. The ball comes out of his hand into the defender's hand.
He's getting sacked.
And he is sitting on top of another defender. The bottom of his cleats are down, as your feet typically do when they are planted into the ground. But his ass is not on the ground. No part of him is touching the grass that would rule that an incomplete. Not one. He is sitting ass on the defender trying to take a shit like OBJ's under him.
Yeah, and the ball gets knocked out and gets caught by a defender.
Which is a pick.
Is an interception.
The exact rules of football. And they called it they called him down. They said he was
down. Yeah, and then Kansas City immediately punted it. So fast they punted it.
And Bill Belichick was so angry.
He was running on the sidelines
that he forgot to challenge.
Yeah. It was his own fault. It was his own fault.
Yes, but no. The ref's got to make that.
He should have challenged that.
He should have. I'm saying yes, but he should not have been in that. Like yes and no. I'm with you 60-40. Like he needs to know to challenge that, but the refs need to know that play can't be made. Those are the plays that make you think, is this rigged? Those are the plays that make you think, is this rigged?
Yeah, I thought that.
Look, here's the deal. The Patriots defense did a really good job against this Chiefs offense for the most part.
Yeah.
Like they still did a good job. The score does not reflect that. Tyrann Mathieu got that pick six that Edelman's got to make that catch. Edelman's got to make that catch. Exact same thing that happened. Actually, the exact same thing that happened in Seattle with Greg Olsen that the Patriots turned into a pick six.
Yeah.
So the Patriots offense did not look hot. It did not look hot with Hoyer. But I mean, did we expect them to win this game? No.
With Cam Newton, maybe, but no, not with
that. I don't think so. I mean, look, the pro here is that your defense is still playing well. Like you guys are being the New England Patriots. That's the fucking pro here. The con is that you were missing your quarterbacks to COVID, and now you have more players with COVID. And that's, if you lose Stephon Gilmore, that's a huge loss.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's a false positive.
For the Chiefs, man, they had a good game against a team that wasn't really all there. And they got some calls that were really questionable. Yeah. And look, this is a team that we know can destroy other teams. This isn't like we're talking about like Carolina or the Raiders. This is the Kansas City Chiefs, who are good. But that play shifted the momentum for the Patriots. I think if they'd gotten that, this game plays out a little differently. I think the score is a little closer. I think it's more 17 to 21 or 24.
Yeah. I'm going to start with Kansas City. I think it's probably the easier one to do. The positive, there are a lot of positives for Kansas City in this game. I think the one that I saw that stood out to me the most was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Had a great game. You know, in that offense, this is a good game. He had 16 rushes for 64 yards, 3 receptions for 27 yards. In an I would dare to say an air raid style offense, this is a great stat line for a running back, especially one that is proving himself to be a dynamic weapon and really hard to tackle. The negative for Kansas City was there was no real pass rush. I think they got 1 sack on Hoyer. That's it. Come on now, man. You have to be better than that if you're going to be touting yourself as one of the better defenses in the league. New England is where we get into the thick of it. The positive that I saw was that the defense held Kansas City to only 6 points in the first half. I think that's definitely a season low for the Chiefs, but defense was trying to hold on in the first half, and the offense did not give them anything to play for. The negative was that the offense, there was no real threat at all. None. Maybe Damian Harris. That was it. Damian Harris was the offensive star of the game, and he only had maybe 50 yards rushing. It's not a good day for the Patriots, and they need Cam back, and Edelman needs to do a lot better. A lot better. He is the veteran on that team that is supposed to give them that competitive edge, especially in those passes that he dropped 2, and one of them he dropped them both in the same way, and one of them got a pick 6 on. So not a very good day for him.
Shall we move on? I want to highlight N'Keal Harry is looking better as the season's progressing. He's getting a little bit better. He had a lot of people have counted him, and I think that he had some severe injuries last year, and I think he's adjusting this year. He's looking better. Now there's still a lot to be wanted there, but I just wanted to highlight that as a player that I think is going to have a little bit of a recap in their career. But yeah, let's get to what was the original Monday night game, a game that made me feel absolute pure rage. And I'm not even a fan of either one of these teams. Let's start with the positives here. I'm gonna do a little reverse on you. The Packers. Let's start with the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is playing like an MVP. I think that he's second or third. Jones and him are kind of that next set there. He definitely found something this offseason that made him happy. Players made plays. Players came up when they needed them to. The tight end, Tanya or Tinker Tot, whatever. Tonka Truck.
Robert Tonyan.
I'm going to call him Tonka Truck.
That's a good nickname.
Thank you. Can we get that started? Tonka Truck?
Tonka Truck.
Let's
go, Tonyan.
He cut up this non-existent defense. JV high school, like Jesus Christ, this defense. I know they had a lot of injuries too, but Jesus, you'd think they can make a stop once in a while. They're really the negative here was the irony that Green Bay struggled, it seemed like, to run the ball at times against this defense. Like, that was my biggest negative because I didn't really think there was a negative here. Yeah. Like, they were just also it's the fact that Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones struggled. And then, like, the next play, they would just, like, throw it to Aaron Jones to the side, and he'd get, like, 15 yards. So it didn't matter that he couldn't, like, run for 20 yards at a time. But they would tear off these chunk plays on the run game, too. The defense played well. Like, everything just went well. There was a negative that came up for me. And this is, they talked about a lot Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur's relationship. And there were times that the announcers would say things about what had transpired between them that concerned me in a relationship between a quarterback and a coach, but clearly it's not affecting the play, so it doesn't really seem to matter right now.
What are you talking about?
There are times that it sounded like in their relationship that despite the fact that one was the head coach, he was not entirely in charge of this team.
So
that is a concerning thing to me, but it's clearly not affecting the play right now. So I don't know if it's because they've played somewhat easier teams, middle teams. I don't know what's going on. When they face up against some of these kind of the top dogs of the NFC, which they're in right now, I'm not trying to undermine them. I'm curious to see that relationship a little bit more. But that was a concerning thing to me. But that's not as much a game thing. And this week to week, they're killing it right now. I'll deep dive Atlanta right here. Nothing worked. You were forcing a run. They were forcing runs at times that they should have been throwing. The receivers were having struggles. Calvin Ridley and Julio definitely looked like they were nursing injuries. I don't know how to say his name. Number 17 was slaughtering the Green Bay DBs for this game.
Is that Zacchaeus?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was for chunks of like 5 yards at a time. So it didn't matter. This Atlanta offense looked all over the place. This defense is fighting the Cowboys for who gets to be the worst.
You talking about defensively?
Yeah. Who gets to be the worst defense?
The Lions and the Jets and the Jacksonville. They're a lot worse than the Cowboys, and I wouldn't say the Falcons. Cowboys are definitely better than all four of those teams.
The Falcons' defense is just okay. Let's just say this week they were fighting this week for who got to be shredded the most.
Yeah,
it was bad. Dan Quinn, I don't know if he'll make it through the season.
I don't see him making it after the season. I think they're going to give him the respect of keeping him this season, though.
I could see that.
I'll start with Atlanta. The only positive that I really saw was Matt Ryan kept them in this game. It seemed like until about the fourth quarter, when Green Bay kind of took a lead that was a little bit too large. He was 28 for 39, 285 yards.
Laughing on the sidelines. They didn't even give a shit, and it was like the start of the fourth quarter. They knew they'd won.
Yeah. He didn't throw any touchdowns, which is a big problem. I think, Todd Gurley got both of them running. So, big fantasy day for him. Whole 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. The negative for Atlanta is the secondary was so widespread, and I don't know if that was the play calling or if it was just, they did have 2 more defensive backs go down during the game. They were already struggling.
It's getting rough.
It's like practice squad players. So I'm not going to take this win as like anything that's really impressive because this team is absolutely ripped open on defense. Because of injuries and really just the starting personnel wasn't the best to begin with, but injuries to those players now is just, it's detrimental. I think moving on to Green Bay, the positive I saw was the offense continued to be explosive. They stayed consistently explosive is how I would describe the Packers offense. Consistently explosive.
Aaron Rodgers looks like he did 4 years ago.
Yeah. I am enjoying the way that it's going.
I definitely don't think he'll finish as like an MVP candidate, but I think
don't think
he
so either.
Will play this season well, and they look right now, they look to be a playoff team to win this division.
Yeah.
And I want to see them. I'm excited to see them play against Seattle, San Francisco, like these kinds of teams. I know they play San Fran here in a couple weeks. I'm really excited to see that game because San Fran will definitely have a lot more people back. That is a game that I'm sure Green Bay has circled on its calendar.
Yes.
So I'm excited to see them play those. I'm excited to see them play the Bears, even though the Bears' offense is kind of all over the place. The Bears, I think, are still a team that they have to deal with in this division right now.
That doesn't happen until week 12, so there's a little bit of time for that one.
Late.
It is. They play in week 12 and
that's why I'm
week
excited
17.
because I think the Bears will figure out a little bit more of themselves by then. Maybe Big Dick Nick and Trubisky just play halves of the game.
I'm hoping.
Trubisky and Big Dick Nick comes in Second half, MVP, Super Bowl. I mean, you know.
So
I
staying
know
on
I
the
kind of
positive
cut you
stuff for
off
Green Bay.
there.
That's okay. The positives, the offense was explosive without Devontae Adams and Lazard, which is what my biggest fear going into this game was that our offense was going to be a little bit more stagnant than it has been the first 3 games. But no, it is continuously explosive.
I
Consistently
definitely thought this
explosive.
game was going to be a lot closer.
I did as well. I
shouldn't even say, I
The
thought this
running
game was going to
backs
be close.
stepped up huge. Jamal Williams had a day. I'm very happy with his performance. He's growing more and more into the offense. He's being used more and more each week. He was barely used week 1 and has been steadily increasing to get. I think he had about half of the targets. And yeah, he had half the rushing attempts that Aaron Jones did, but passing he had 3 more catches than Aaron Jones did for 55 more yards. So Jamal Williams really showed out in this game, and I'm really happy about that. And then we'll talk about Robert Tonka Truck Tanyan. Three touchdowns that were great. One of them, he literally got tackled. It's a really funny clip that if you can find it, he got tackled as he was running by a defender before the ball is even thrown by like 3 or 4 seconds. Gets tackled, does a somersault, flip forward, and then gets up and catches the touchdown. That's I loved seeing that. I'm not gonna sit back and be super humble about this win. I kind of think that this win was like our win last year against the Raiders, where it's just team showed out and we did really well, but we need to be prepared to get our teeth kicked in.
Look, you beat up the lacrosse kid at
point.
high school.
Yeah, it wasn't the best win, but it was a good win, to continue going right into the bye 4-0.
Atlanta needed a win here, and Green Bay said no. And so that's... Although I didn't realize this, and in my 24 years of watching football, I didn't realize that Lambeau was a bunch of fucking bleachers.
Yeah, there's no seats.
That's
all bleachers.
Awful. I caramba, dude. Get your nuts.
Those northern folks are diligent about their football, and they will come in any conditions to go see those Green Bay Packers. And I love that. I love our fan base. Going to the negatives for Green Bay.
I'm gonna buy a piece of Green Bay Packers and just tank your team.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I have 4 shares.
I have 2, and they're worth quite a bit.
Every Packers fan I meet somehow has a share of the team, and I'm like, okay, there's either too many shares or not enough of you.
The last time they opened it up was for renovations on the field 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, and you still have bleachers. Get some shares in there. Come on. It's 2020.
Moving on to the negatives for Green Bay that I saw, everybody said that the defense was really good this game. I don't think so.
I don't know if it's because Atlanta was bad, but I thought the defense played well.
I thought they played better than they played the week previous. I thought the defense got exposed against the Saints, and I didn't see a lot of improvement here. I thought the coverage downfield wasn't the best. I thought the coverage downfield against Calvin Ridley was awesome.
A little handsy, but yeah, it worked.
It worked. But the defensive performance needs to be better. We need to defend the run better because Gurley was not getting tackled. Gurley should not have had as many yards as he had because he got caught twice in the backfield and allowed to get back to the line of scrimmage.
It was the big pitch runs that saved his night though, because up the middle was god. He
got caught on 2 of those pitch runs. He got caught in those 2 of those pitch runs in the backfield, and then
both of those touchdowns were pitch runs for 5 yards. So maybe that helped. I don't know.
Zadarius Smith was the only real big defensive performance on this team this week. He got NFC Defensive Player of the week with his 3 sacks. He was amazing once again. I love Zadarius Smith, and I hope he never leaves.
So obviously they go on bye, and their next game is against the Buccaneers, who will be either running Leonard Fournette or Ronald Jones. Not both of them, but one of them. So that'll be, I think, a better test here.
Yeah. The last 3 games, Tampa Bay's offense has been rolling, and 2 of those games was because of the running backs. We're just getting a lot of yards, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well,
so we took a little bit of a deeper dive this week. So, let us know if you liked it or not. If you like the shorter ones, like the deeper ones. I do want to give a quick update because we did do predictions before this season, and I wanted to let the people know where we're at it. Carl, you are currently 43-20 after this week, and I am currently 44-20. Granted, next year I think we might do this more week to week because some of these are I'm like, shit, I wouldn't have picked this at this point. I would pick against Denver most of these games where I had Denver winning 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So
Denver's going to be a hard one to call the rest of the season.
But we're getting there. We're working on it.
Getting there. It's a positive record.
I had a great first 2 weeks, and Carl's had a great week 3 and 4 on me. Where I've had really poor weeks, so we're getting there.
Well, we're getting there. We're 44-20 or 43-20.
The worst part is that I had Philly beating the Niners, and then I changed it after the injuries, and then Philadelphia beat the Niners.
Sad days.
I was like, son of a bitch.
Alrighty. Well, that will conclude it for this episode of the Pooch Cake Podcast. I want to say thank you for everybody for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and maybe share this video with your friends. I'm Carl.
I'm Sam.
And we will see you guys next week for your Week 5 recap. See you then.